Never shall innocent blood be shed. Yet the blood of the wicked shall flow like a river. The three shall spread their blackened wings and be the vengeful striking hammer of God. You people have been chosen to reveal our existence to the world. You will witness what happens here today, and you will tell of it later. All eyes to the front. You must watch, dear. It'll all be yours.
Now you will receive us.
We do not ask for your poor or your hungry.
We do not want your tired and sick.
It is your corrupt we claim.
It is your evil that will be sought by us.
With every breath, we shall hunt them down.
Each day, we will spill their blood till it rains down from the skies.
Do not kill. Do not rape. Do not steal. These are principles which every man of every faith can embrace.
These are not polite suggestions. These are codes of behavior. And those of you that ignore them will pay the dearest cost.
There are varying degrees of evil. We urge you lesser forms of filth, not to push the bounds and cross over into true corruption, into our domain.
For if you do, one day you will look behind you and you will see we three. And on that day, you will reap it.
And we will send you to whatever God you wish.
And shepherds we shall be, for thee, my Lord, for thee. Power hath descended forth from thy hand. May swiftly carry out thy command. So we shall flow river forth to thee, and teeming with souls shall it ever be.
In nomine Patri.
Et Filii, Spiritus Sancti.
How far are we gonna take this, Star?
The question is not how far. The question is, do you possess the Constitution? The depth of faith to go as far as is needed?
They exited out the front door. They had no idea what they were in for. Now they're staring at 6 men with guns drawn. It was a fucking ambush. This was a fucking bomb dropping on Beaver Cleaverville. For a few seconds, this place was Armageddon. There was a firefight!
Son of a bitch!
Guys,
Hey.
Hello. Well, I intend this. I'm leading tonight. I intend this to be kind of a lighter stream. And watching through the intro, I was reflecting on the differences between the three of us. Okay, I'm trained as a mechanical engineer, so I really think in the physical, and I can understand that. Plutarch, he's got that engineering mind, but more software kind of stuff. But he's a pilot, so he understands the physical, but it's more intangible. I mean, writing code, stuff like that is concepts. Nick, on the other hand, is a pastor, and he's dealt with the theological, the philosophical, but yeah, he's still in the real world because of what he does in his daily job. But each one of us has distinctive approaches to things, and that's kind of our nature. So today, we're going to go into the engineering realm and talk about real world things and how morality matters. And I'm going to be going into some of the things that are going on in China, but it's not exclusive to China. It's happening here too. So before we get into this, I want to do a little primer on engineering concepts that people can probably relate to. You guys have anything you want to say before I get into that?
I like how you said primer, not primer. Okay.
Engineering is a precise art, so we must be precise.
Right. So,
Oh, math? I mean, you got to get the math right.
somewhat, but
2 plus 2 can't equal 5, Steve? Even if it looks good?
You don't even have to know math, well, at the rudimentary level. So, Nick, in the ancient world, what were bridges constructed of?
Well, depends on the bridge, but yeah, generally you started out with wood.
The bridges
They
that
were
still
stone.
survive.
Oh, you mean like the arches that you see that are built in ancient Roman roads that are still standing today that go over bodies of water.
A stone. Bridges were built of stone. Then the next bridges were built out of wood. Wood has always been an option, but it doesn't last that long. In New England, because wood didn't last that long. What did they put over the top of the bridge? A roof. It's called a covered bridge. Preserve the wood.
Okay.
But then they wanted to span longer distances, so they went to wrought iron. And then pretty much from there it went to steel, then cables, and then we kind of came back to concrete. So if you had a chasm or a ditch 6 foot wide, and you wanted to cross that, and you had a concrete beam or some wooden planks, which would you choose?
Concrete beam. Also I lived in a house. The ditch was about at the surface. It was about 6 foot for the incline. It's probably about 3 feet at the 1.5 to 3 feet, depending on where you're at the ground level. It sucked to mow it, by the way. Fucking excuse. Oh damn it! I didn't even. Oh, I did make it past the 8-minute mark. Excuse my language. That mower would flip. Anyways, but yeah. So a lot of the houses that where I grew up had big ditches, and they had concrete going over it.
Nick, you just made a poor choice.
I don't know. That's just what the whole subdivision did.
I didn't give you the option of using steel.
There might have been steel involved in it. I didn't look.
Oh, damn right there was. Because concrete. If you bend concrete, does it bend?
It
No,
fractures.
it doesn't. It
It
cracks.
cracks and fractures.
You know why? Concrete
Stress.
is weak in tensile strength, very strong in compressive strength. Meaning,
Okay.
you can't squish it, but you can pull it apart very easily. So a concrete beam without any steel inside will fail because the bottom will be in tension, because the bottom gets bigger and the top gets smaller, right? Because it tends to arc. So the top is in compression, the bottom is in tension, and it pulls apart. And that's where the crack starts. So how do they make concrete work? Oh, they tension the concrete. So they put some rebar through it, which holds it kind of together so it doesn't allow the cracks to start. Or they put tubes through it and a steel cable, and then this is post tension. And after the concrete is poured, they pull on the cable. So the cable, steel cable, has a tension and it squishes the concrete. And now when you put a load on the top, even though the bottom wants to expand a little bit, it's still in compression.
Oh. So even some of the ancient Greeks and ancient Roman, I think I'm thinking about the Acropolis. They actually had steel going through that at the gate.
No. They did not.
They did. They did.
They didn't have steel back then. Here's how
Iron,
they did it.
whatever the hell it
They had
was. Iron. Okay, I'm sorry. Iron.
Well, the Pantheon is the largest concrete dome that has no reinforcement, unreinforced concrete. And it's been there for damn near 2,000 years, hasn't fallen down. That's because the way it's constructed, it's all in compression. And you do an arch, all the load comes from the top and it's just transferred down to the bottom. Everything's in compression. The cathedrals in Europe, they were built with piling stones upon stones. And then, they had those wings called flying buttresses. That was to take the lateral forces and make sure everything was in compression.
Man, this is like my undergrad all over again. Okay.
So,
I did some medieval construction and ancient technology. So, yeah.
This stuff matters. So it's simple concepts that most people can understand, but then us techie, nerdy, weenie guys, we took it and we quantified this and we came up with rules and all kinds of calculations and to make it stronger, more durable, span longer distances. If we use steel, the tensile strength of steel is much greater, so we can build structures. It's even bigger. So you know what? How about if we string a cable from one side to the other and then hang it off of there, and then we'll pour a concrete roadbed below it, but weight's going to be carried by the steel. I think this is a great idea. And it is. And our bridges are built that way. For instance, the Brooklyn Bridge.
What year was that built, Steve?
18 You said it. I didn't look it up. 1860, 1850?
1883.
1883. Okay, well, it was made of steel. This was after wrought iron. But the towers were built of stone. So they're all in compression. And then you got a cable that strings from one to the other. And then you're hanging cable ropes off of that. And then you have a girder structure underneath made of steel. And it's all supported there. And you know what? That damn bridge is still there. Yeah, they've had to paint it and, do some maintenance. But what, 18?
As all structures require maintenance, right?
Well,
Yeah, 18, we'll call it 1890 until 1990. That's 100 years. And we're 35. It's 135 years.
141 according to Wikipedia.
Okay.
And they have had to replace the steel bits of that bridge. I mean, steel rusts, right? And New York is next to an ocean, so we expect that they would have to replace some of the steel, and they have. But the way that bridge is constructed, the important parts can be replaced without dismantling the bridge.
So, what does this have to do with morality?
Oh, you mean it should stay together and not fall apart and cost people lives?
Well, yeah,
Cost lives, basically.
that's simple, but I'm
And
gonna get
it should do the job it's supposed to do, right? In transporting whatever was desired to be transported from one side to the other side successfully.
true. But as a man, if you're going to work on something, people are depending on you. You want your work product to not endanger people. And really, you want it to outlast you. So were the men
I mean-
working on that bridge thinking about morality?
Oh man.
Well,
I think
Were
it was their duty to do so.
well, it was their duty. I would argue that they weren't directly thinking about morality. Like they weren't saying, "Oh, ho, ho, we need to build this bridge this way because that's a moral thing to do." They were thinking, "I need to get shit from New Jersey into Manhattan, and the best way to do that is to build a bridge between here and here." Okay.
Oh, but that's still moral, but maybe not directly not a direct moral.
Right. It
Yeah.
was still a choice. They could have said,
Right.
we'll just keep doing it on boats, which is how they were doing it before.
Well, they had a pride, in the sense, a good pride, in the work they did. They're not going to do shit work. If I'm going to put my labor in it, that fucker's going to be right and it's going to be good. And I'm going to do my best because people depend on me. So, yeah, they're not thinking about morality, the word morality, but they're thinking about duty and just pride of workmanship.
Well, what they were thinking was, I want to build a bridge that can withstand. They honestly would have had no idea how long the bridge would last. They probably would tell you that they are shocked that it made it this far. But they said, I want to make a bridge that will not kill people if something goes wrong with it, right? That we will have the time to stop traffic and we will be able to see it. So and this is something I hit in my job all the time. When I build something, I build on computers, but I still have to think like this. Okay, who's going to be coming after me taking care of what I wrote, of what I built? How are they going to have to take care of it? Because you have to take care of stuff. And So these guys are probably thinking, how can we build something that somebody else can take care of later so that the bridge that we can stop the bridge from crashing and killing people?
It's like when I build a title opinion, right? I go through the documents, I find where the mineral rights and the surface rights were severed, depending on your state. I get it. Okay, there's a certain period of time land mineral rights are severed. Then you figure out, okay, well, the mineral rights went to here, 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 here. It's held under lease here, and they sold the rights to the lease here, and blah, blah, blah. Here's all the accumulating interest that goes out to all the parties. Is it held under lease? Is it not? Is it available lease? Is it sold? I have to send that out that a title opinion. If that's not correct, then they cannot properly. If that's not correct, they can get fined for trespass.
Well, if it's not correct and it's conveyed to a new party, but there's a defect, is there a problem in the future?
Yeah.
So, Nick, do you want to do defective work if no one discovers it for 5 or 10 years?
No. So I want to do my
Okay.
job right. I have a duty to do my job correctly. If I'm not
So,
doing my job correctly, then what the hell do
Why,
they hire
Nick?
me?
Why?
Because I actually care what I'm doing for. I care that what I'm doing has an effect. I care for my clients. I also care for my own integrity.
Okay, but why do you care? What's driving you to care? Why have you decided that look, I guarantee you there's somebody, because you work in an industry, there's somebody in your industry who is not behaving this integrally and is
Oh, I've seen 'em.
probably making more money than you. So why are you doing this?
Because I still have to answer ultimately before God for whatever I do and whatever duties He's placed upon me to do them correctly to His glory. And it might bite me in the ass years down the road.
Oh, okay. So there's a moral duty to a higher power, but there's also a moral duty to your future.
Correct. There's temporal and eternal.
This kind of brings up something, and we had to Plutarch drew it out of Nick. Nick is just gonna do the right thing because that's who he is. He's not thinking about morality when he's doing the right thing. It's just in him. That's what he's gonna do. And that's why civilization continues. That's why we can depend on the past. That's why our infrastructure works, because you're depending on guys you don't know, who are, many of them, long dead, to have done their job right and left a legacy of their workmanship for future generations. They were not praised. They were not acknowledged. They weren't said, "Oh, man, you did a good job there." No, they just did their damn job. And this diffused morality of individual actions of men in Western civilization is why we are where we are. So now let's look. Why don't you pull up the first video of the tower in Myanmar?
That one.
Yeah, Bangkok, Thailand.
And where do you want me to start? It's 15 minutes long, so.
Well, let's just start it at the beginning, and we'll go through it for a while. This happened what, 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I watched this happen, and look, Thailand's a known earthquake zone. I'm just going to say that up front.
This 30-story tower collapsed. Somebody fucked up. more than one person fucked up.
Yep.
Okay.
On the afternoon of March 28th, a 7.9 magnitude earthquake struck Myanmar with a depth of 30 kilometers. The tremors quickly spread to nearby areas like Thailand and China's Yunnan province. About 960 kilometers from the epicenter, a 30-story building under construction in Bangkok collapsed just 5 seconds after the earthquake. The scene showed thick smoke, and people...
I just want to stop and say something here. This tower fell almost 1,000 kilometers away from the epicenter of the earthquake. Just hold on to that little piece of information, guys. Because a 7.7, that's a pretty rocking earthquake, but
Significant.
It's significant, but we've had worse in recorded history. So, in the recorded history of towers, is how I'll say that.
Right.
Okay.
People were running in panic. While the world focused on the strong earthquake in Myanmar, the collapsed building in Bangkok became an unexpected center of attention. It turns out that this building was constructed by China Railway 10th Bureau, CR10, a Chinese company. It was called a Chinese Overseas Construction Showcase. Now it seems to be another powerful example of the Chinese Communist Party's shoddy construction projects being exported abroad. No wonder some people said that while an earthquake is a natural disaster and a human tragedy, it's almost comical that only buildings constructed by Chinese companies collapsed in the quake. According to local media, the collapse of the building killed at least 3 people and left 81 missing. The Thai National Emergency Medical Center reported on Facebook that around 320 people were on the construction site when the building collapsed. 20 people were trapped in the elevator shaft. 50 people were injured in the earthquake, with 40 of them being sent to hospitals. The collapsed building was meant to be the new office building for Thailand's Office of the Auditor General. It was located in the Chatuchak district of Bangkok. The total budget for the building was 2.1 billion Thai baht, or around 62 million US dollars. It was being built by a joint venture between China Railway 10th Bureau Thailand Company Limited and Italy's Italian Development Company Limited. The building was designed to be 137 meters tall, and construction started in 2020. Work was paused due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but the main structure was completed by March 31st, 2024. This 30-story building used a unique core tube plus beamless floor structural system, a design that previously caused major safety concerns in Miami, Florida. Experts say that while this system offers high space efficiency, it poses special challenges for earthquake resistance. The collapse of a condominium in Miami in 2021, which resulted in 98 casualties, was caused by similar beamless floor systems that failed during a strong earthquake. When the earthquake happened, Chinese authorities reported that the construction progress was only 30%, which contradicted earlier statements that the building had been topped out. It's worth noting that the China Railway 10th Bureau celebrated the completion of the main structure in April 2024. However, after the incident, they immediately deleted the related article. If the structure had truly topped out in April 2024, then by March 2025, the building should...
Stop right there. So, they immediately deleted the crap from basically online sources.
Yes.
Doesn't this happen when some lady's relationship collapses pretty publicly? They go in and delete all their crap before and try to hide away so stuff doesn't happen. It can even happen to conservatives because they're fear of being doxxed and all that stuff. So I get it.
Do you have to relate everything to male-female sexual dynamics?
Steve.
That's what we do here.
It is kind of what we do here. That's true.
Okay,
But there's a similar theme. I'm just saying there's a similar theme.
Okay, remember that introduction I did about concrete spanning distances? You see, the floors were concrete. Yeah, that works. But you need the right concrete. Okay, you can pour it and prefab it, but you need some steel stuff going there to squish it together and in tension.
Oh, the right frame? The right frame, because without frame, your relationship's cooked.
Okay, we'll go there. And you need the quality of frame.
I was digging Plutarch there.
Okay, and here's another thing. Do you think just putting steel rebar in there is enough? No.
I'm not an
No.
engineer.
No, because some of the steel rebar they put in there was substandard. It was lower quality. Now, if you're going to pour a slab in your garage and you're going to put some rebar in there to prevent it from cracking, do you think the quality of rebar in your garage floor needs to be as high as the quality of steel in the concrete of a floor on the 25th floor of this tower?
Well, need to? No, not really. I might choose to anyway.
Right. But, okay, here's the point. There are different qualities of rebar, different standards. And when you get in more critical applications, you have to use higher quality shit to make sure it works. If the chance
Oh, so you gotta-
of failure is low, yeah, you can use lower quality shit.
But you need to build it for outcome independence. So in case shit hits the fan, right? The
Well,
structure stays.
Yeah.
Look, earthquakes happen.
In
it-
relationships too.
Yes, actually. You're just having fun, aren't you, Nick?
Oh yeah.
You know, when we're talking about engineering, there are problems that we know we're going to encounter as we're building. Is that we don't necessarily know all the problems we're going to encounter, and as a software guy, you know, this comes up quite a bit. Sometimes you encounter problems and you go, oh wow, I didn't think of that. I'm going to have to stop and rethink. And that happens on construction projects too. I did construction when I was a young man. I watched it happen. Okay.
Happens on drill sites and drilling rigs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But there's also classes of problems where you can know well in advance that you're going to have to deal with it. Bangkok, Thailand, Myanmar, all of those countries in Southeast Asia, they're on what's called the Ring of Fire, which is a plate tectonic zone, which is well
Not the Johnny
known.
Cash song.
No, no. But it's well known that you're going to have fairly large earthquakes with regularity in these areas. Like the engineers knew, and I think that's a point that Steve's trying to make here.
Did they really know?
There's a bunch of things that goes into quality construction. The quality of the materials. You need the right steel. Okay, you're pouring concrete. Oh, are you going to get a bunch of bags of Quikrete? Mix them up? Oh, here's my concrete. No, there's a science to concrete. You can have different strength concrete. Bridge concrete is very specific. You bring it in, it only has a certain life in the cement truck, concrete truck, before it has to be poured and set and whatever. And then they pour little cones that are later tested to make sure that that is the right mix, has the right strength, the right components in it. That all needs to be done. You need engineers to understand where all those stresses and forces are going so it works. Then you need the workmen to actually care that they're going to build it according to what the engineer said it needed to be. Now, in this tower, now you can blame, okay, before I go there, you can blame the workmen in China. Oh, they're just cutting corners of the contractors. Yeah, they're just skimping on things. Okay, go ahead, blame them. And they certainly are to blame. But I heard something else about this tower. It was dependent on an elevator shaft. A lot of the structure was dependent on an elevator shaft, which has to go from the bottom all the way up to the top. It was designed with, I believe, 30-centimeter thick walls. How thick is 30 centimeters? Well, 1 inch is what, 2.5 centimeters? So
It's about 12 inches. It's 11.8 inches, so it's about 12 inches.
yeah. Guess what? There are corridors around that elevator shaft were not wide enough. Somebody screwed up on the code. Well, what's the solution? Well, it's simple. We just reduce the thickness of the elevator shaft walls from 30 centimeters down to 10 centimeters. Are you laughing with me?
I can tell you this won't work, and I want to do a little bit of just a small aside here, because there's a certain set of conspiracy theorists on the internet that, as an engineer, I get very, very pissed at. Okay, and that would be the 911 people, the controlled demolition conspiracy theorists. I actually want to point something out. This tower uses a very similar design to the World Trade Center towers. Okay. It uses a elevator core shaft, with the elevator core shaft being a primary structural component. World Trade Center towers were designed in a similar fashion. And people said, "Oh, well, the tower's falling straight down. That's because it was a controlled demolition." I want to note something. This tower also pancaked straight down. I want to throw that out there. And
I want to point out one key difference. No airplane hit this building.
That
was not an unforeseen event. Well,
you do have a point. Well, no, yeah. So
they did design some airplane collisions into the World Trade Center. That is true.
Yeah, but not fully loaded 767s. Now, on this one, though, this was caused by an earthquake. Earthquakes in engineering are foreseen events. Okay. We know that earthquakes can happen. We actually have pretty good data on the frequency of earthquakes and the magnitude at how frequency, we actually have really good data on all of this. The engineers designing this tower, they knew. They had all this information.
And the workers building this tower knew that an earthquake was likely to happen within their lifetime. And the contractors working on this building knew that an earthquake was likely to happen within their lifetime, within the foreseeable future. Yet everybody just, okay, whatever it takes to get this project done and make it look good. Hey, that's why the title of this program is called The Morality of Putting Lipstick on a Pig.
Oh, you mean there's some carryover with women too? It's like putting lipstick on a pig. Oh, she looks really nice, but internally she's crap.
Well, that's actually a key point about engineering. This project is interesting because the earthquake happened during construction, and so they didn't get the chance to make the building look finished. Okay. Oh. In this particular case, they didn't get a chance to put the lipstick on the pig. But when you step into a building that looks finished, your brain assumes it's finished. Your brain assumes that it's structurally sound because, hey, they finished it. If there was something wrong with it, they would have stopped and fixed it before we got to finish, right?
No. They wouldn't have fixed it. They already laid it.
Well,
You cover up,
I'm asking a question about how humans think, like,
you cover up your mistakes. Just put some plaster and drywall over it. No one will see those cracks.
and you're right, they won't see them. Like,
If you don't see them, they don't exist. But what's under the surface is the defects under the surface are still there. That's why morality matters. It's got to be a way of life. It's got to be in the fabric of what you do and who you are. Even if nobody sees your defects, they exist and they have a big impact on you, your children, society. You have to be of substance, not merely of appearance.
Steve, or go ahead, Nick.
I didn't say anything. I think I had some feedback or something.
Oh, okay. Steve, I was actually thinking about this quite a bit and recently, because in my industry there, and in all software, there is this drive that says that if you're not first, you're last. If you're not first, you've failed. All
right, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah, well, you bring up Ricky Bobby, but there's a bit of that attitude in this industry, and in lots of other industries, I think, where engineering is used, where you have to go fast because if you can't deliver on time, somebody else will. And we've talked about the H-1B problem before. Okay. That ties into this. I'm not going to do a long explanation of why, but there's always somebody willing to do something cheaper and faster than doing it the right way. And so the purpose of morality says, no, we are going to intentionally not make as much money in order to do the right thing by our customer, client, the nebulous people, even, because we need to build a quality product, not be there first. But in my industry, everyone's got to be there first, and they will cut enormous corners to get there. Look, I don't, no human can ship bug-free software, but you can ship software that is well-designed, relatively bug-free, etc. It just takes twice as long or more. And, it's software. I could tell you all the various ways that software can kill you. Now, it's not going to kill you. It's not quite as obvious as this building falling down here, but that idea of cutting corners. Well, because Steve, you brought up these walls, okay? The thickness of these elevator shaft walls. I don't know if this video gets into it, but I read that the walls, instead of going back and re-engineering the thing, what did they actually do? They said, well, we're just going to, on the job site, make the call to make the walls thinner than the engineers specified. So the engineers had done the math. They said that the elevator shaft is a key component of the structural integrity, and therefore it needs to be X thickness. And on the construction site, they said, shit, we can't do that. Oh, well, let's just scrape some thickness off the sides. And this way they didn't have to start over. They didn't have to go back and say, we need more money.
They didn't have that delay in construction. But every component of that building has to work together. Yep. It's a shared, it's like a web. The floors have to have a certain load transfer. The outside walls have to have a certain load bearing. You're transferring forces all over. It has to work together. You can't just change one thing and then expect the rest of it to work. And you can't change that one thing and then cheapen this, and then cheapen this, and then cheapen this. Oh, man. Call it a house of cards.
Well, and we were discussing the Brooklyn Bridge earlier, right? The Brooklyn Bridge is 141 years old. I strongly suspect that the engineers of the Brooklyn Bridge would have looked at this building and gone, what the fuck are you people doing? Even though they don't understand things, you know, they wouldn't have dealt with things like, you know, pre-tension concrete, and, you know, they were working on towers that kind of got up this high. So, you know, but they would look at this and they would go, what is this? There's no way. Because
they knew, okay, engineers, structural engineers, just think abstractly. They can look at something and understand where the forces go and how this component has to work. And you explain to them, oh, this is concrete, this is tension. Okay, they will get it within a couple hours, and they'll think it through and say, oh, yeah, okay. You know, it's a unspoken language. It's just a deep level of comprehension. Most people don't understand this, but it's just the laws of physics, the rules, and are applicable across the board. They just know that. And so you're right. They'd look at this and say, what the fuck are you doing?
Right. Like they might not have known the exact specifics, but they could have looked at this and gone, no way. The difference is they would have raised a stink about it. And
yeah, we're back to morality. Morality of the engineers, morality of the workers, morality of the contractors.
Well, one of the things that a highly specialized society does is it allows all of the individual specialists to say, well, I don't know anything about this. It's not my fault. I just did what I was told to do. Okay. And the special, you know, I specialize in concrete. Okay. But I don't know anything about steel, or I specialize in steel, but I don't know anything about concrete. Now, you know, there are engineers who do, but you know, that I'm being a little silly here, but that to prove a point, right? And that point is every person in this chain, from the engineers back in probably Guangzhou, all the way to the dudes doing the work, nobody said, hey, this doesn't look right. And we can say, oh, well, that's an education problem, or, oh, you know, this is... No, nobody's went. No, I guarantee you there was a worker there, you know, maybe a concrete worker, concrete layers. Here's the thing, a concrete layer, somebody who just lays concrete, I guarantee you in their lives, they have done dozens of different concrete pours. And they've poured into rebar, they poured, you know, into all sorts of structures, and they know what it should look like.
So, Plutarch, ultimately, who is running this project?
Well, the Chinese, in this case, it was the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP.
No, I'm not looking for that answer.
Okay.
I'm looking for the answer. What group of people was running it? What trade, what philosophy, what kind of people were running this project?
Well, I would hope the engineers were running it.
No, engineers don't run projects.
That's why I said I would hope. I knew that would trigger you.
Doesn't happen in the U.S. either.
I know.
Is it the accountants?
It still does, and it still does in the oil field. So you have You have the supervisor there who kind of knows, like, hey, this might not work. We need to adapt to this situation. You have the engineers on site, then you have the engineers that are not on site, then you have like the owner of the company, and they all kind of know. Say, hey, we're encountering this problem
Yeah, it appears so, but no.
because
Ultimately,
there's standards and they don't want to be uninsurable by not doing things the right way, and they want to be able to produce. There's money involved.
okay,
If you can't produce with the right crap, then you're
that's at the
you're
local
effed,
level.
basically.
Yes, and it works because those guys can have, they're not going to build shit. But ultimately, it's the finance guys that are running the project. We need this done on budget, on time. I don't want to hear about your problems. Get it done. You are 2 weeks behind on your schedule. Make it up. Put the labor in there. Get her done.
The finance guys wouldn't say it that way. They would say, you told me you could get it done, and it's not getting done, and there's a financial penalty for not getting it done on time. And that's actually very common in these deals. There's some sort of penalty where they either don't get paid or whatnot. Nick, you were talking about the oil fields. I find it interesting that we don't hear about major mishaps in the oil patch very often. I'm not saying they don't happen.
They do. And it's usually the financiers behind a project want to push the people that are. But smart ones say, okay, no, this is what's going to happen. This is in the contract. We had this possibility. We're not going to do this crap that you want to do that's going to F everything up just because you're getting weak in the knees because, oh, well, my finance thing says this. They said, okay, well, here's the buyout option. A lot of times people who know what they're doing say these people are idiots. They don't know shit about the oil field. And so they tend to leave. What's funny is though, if they leave, they get bought. It's a risk. So they can leave. They lose a certain percentage of interest and they get bought out. And the guys that know what they're doing, they can make it successful and say, yeah, this guy's an idiot. We'll buy him out. And then they take all the profit.
So I worked in the crude oil pipeline business. The safety stuff that those guys did was so far beyond any place else. They cared about safety because they didn't want the bad publicity. Plus, the kind of guys, the workers that work in oil and gas pipeline, they're kind of a different breed of people. You can't tell them what to do. They'll kind of do their own thing, but they do have a pride in their workmanship. And you know what? They're just not going to cut corners. You really can't push them that far. So there's an ingrained morality, even though they're kind of outward surfaces. Well, let me put it this way. I've said this before. If a pipeline is coming through town, lock up your daughters.
It's so true. Well, look, we're not necessarily speaking about, and I've said this before, we're not necessarily speaking about a modern Protestant Christian morality here. Okay. But these are guys who understood that their actions would have future consequences. Okay. Yeah, lock your daughters up. That's really good advice. But
I think we've seen enough of this video. I've got my points across here. So your answer, who's in charge? The Communist Party. Okay. Yep. And I said the finance guys. Yep. A combination of the two. So it's about meeting performance criteria and financial standards and appearances. Okay, so what happens when you organize your society on this basis? Let's look at the. Oh, okay. Let me introduce another term. In China, this kind of thing is so common, they call it tofu dreg construction. Now, for all you meat eaters, do you know what tofu is? Have you ever touched tofu? It's kind of like
I haven't had it in a
jello.
long time. I haven't
It's
had it in a long
not
time.
really hard. It's flexible. It doesn't support much weight. Yeah, concrete is one thing. Tofu, I'm not going to build much on tofu. Dreg means just crappy. So, tofu dreg construction. Can you pull up the next video, Plutarch? And let's look at bridges in China.
On the morning of April 23rd at 7 a.m., the Chaobai River Bridge in Shunyi District, Beijing, also known as the Rainbow Bridge, suddenly collapsed. In the video, the bridge's middle section collapses unexpectedly, with the bridge deck falling into the river while thick smoke can be seen. There are reports suggesting that a fire might have occurred on the bridge, which caused damage to its structure and led to the collapse. The Beijing Municipal Transport Committee's official Weibo account later reported that a fire had broken out on the bridge, causing partial structural damage. The Beijing Traffic Police Weibo account mentioned that the bridge was undergoing temporary construction, and traffic control measures had been implemented on roads nearby. The Chaobai River Bridge is an important link between Shunyi and Pinggu districts, serving as a key passage across the river in Shunyi. The bridge sees heavy daily traffic. It is the only middle support cable-stayed bridge in Beijing, with a main span of 180 meters. The bridge was opened to traffic in 1999 and has been in service for 26 years. Before the incident, there had been public concerns about the bridge's maintenance. Reports indicated that the bridge had just been inspected in October last year, but staff from the Shunyi Highway Bureau said the inspection report is not disclosed to the public. The main bridge had undergone several repairs. In July 2015, the bridge's approach had issues, leading to surface replacements and crack sealing. In December 2017, there were problems with abnormal expansion joints and shifting of the bridge's beams. The Shunyi Highway Bureau concluded that the main structure did not suffer from defects and carried out repairs on the western approach. On social media, people expressed doubts. What is disclosed to the public is a lie, and what is hidden is the truth. Isn't the bridge made of reinforced concrete? How could it catch on fire? The collapse probably caused a short circuit which ignited the fire. Others pointed out the design life of the bridge was around 100 years. It was completed in 1999, and by 2017, there were obvious quality issues. This is clearly a poorly built project. After 2 more repairs since 2017, it collapsed less than 8 years later. How much did this bridge cost? Further comments echoed frustration. Shoddy construction is very common. This will become the norm. China's infrastructure is so far ahead. How much more of the shoddy construction is hidden? The bridge collapsed, but the accounts are settled. Who will take responsibility for the safety of the people? On the same day, in Huanggang, Hubei province, someone noticed that the steel reinforcement in a bridge on the Huwu Expressway had corroded, with pieces falling off when struck by stones. However, vehicles were still crossing the bridge.
It's basically falling apart. How many more years can this steel hold up?
Shoddy bridges like this are widespread in China. For example, a new bridge in Jingzhou, Hubei province, tilted after opening. In Chengdu,
are you looking to establish your business using an address?
That blah blah. There we go.
is found to fill the guardrails of a river. In Chuzhou, Zhejiang, a highway had cracks in its surface and roadbed collapses before it even opened.
For such a big project, the bridge is already crooked before the scaffolding is even removed. It's strange. Look here. It's a shoddy construction. The scaffolding was not removed, and the bridge collapsed in an instant.
On February 15, 2025, a new bridge in Zhaojialin village, Hubei province, tilted shortly after opening. A local worker from the Jiangling County Water Resources Bureau said the bridge had not been inspected yet and was only in trial operation. The worker
Hold on,
added,
right here. Oh, The bridge had not been inspected yet. That's going to just go by most people. You cannot inspect quality into a product.
Correct.
You have to design it in. You have to check. You have to inspect throughout the whole damn construction, the whole bridge construction project. Or damn construction project. And no, at the end, you can't say, well, gee, it's done. Let me go out and inspect this thing and see if it's good. Are you delusional?
Well, I just want to tell the audience a little bit. The reason I'm letting this video play is I actually watched this one prior to the stream. Steve sent it out in our private chat, and this video actually did a pretty good job of burying the lead because it gets worse from here. You know, like, oh, you know, the concrete's falling apart, and that's not good. By the way, you know, the reason that we put the rebar inside the concrete is because if you don't put it inside the concrete, it rusts, and rusty rebar is no longer structurally sound. So we don't want that. So this guy, he was showing the concrete flaking off, and you can see the rebar. Well, that rebar will then rust and will become structurally weakened, and that bridge will collapse well before its design lifespan.
Okay, so steel's going to rust. It's in concrete. It's going to get wet. How do you stop that from rusting?
Well, rust requires oxygen, so you have to get the oxygen out of it.
No. Okay.
No?
Oxygen, you can't stop that.
Okay.
Concrete
I'm
is
not a
porous.
structural guy.
The oxygen is going to be there. The water is going to be there. Oh, in the U.S., let's coat it with epoxy to prevent that from getting there. Did that work? Nope.
Yeah, wouldn't the concrete mess with the epoxy?
No. But epoxy is not a perfect shield.
Okay.
So you would have pinholes in the epoxy.
Okay.
Rust happens with there's an electrical circuit.
Yeah.
Okay. So wherever there's a hole, guess what? It pinpointed all the rusting and corrosion at that spot.
Man, this sounds like a woman testing the frame.
So you put a steel pipeline in the ground. How do you prevent it from rusting?
I don't know.
They don't. They just drop it in the ground, don't they? And cover it up.
No, there's this thing called cathodic protection. So what if we put some electrical currents in here, put a wire from the pipeline over to some magnesium
Oh, interesting.
in a sack in the ground and force the electricity to go in the opposite direction? And let's call that magnesium sack, let's call that the anode. And
kind of how they do it on ships. Okay.
We're going to sacrifice that anode. So we'll call it a sacrificial anode. And we'll call this whole thing cathodic protection. We'll force the corrosion is going to happen. We're going to force it over here into magnesium. And magnesium is more reactive than steel. Have you ever heard of galvanized steel?
Yep.
That's like a zinc coating.
I'm just going to say, on ships, they use things called zincs sitting right next to the.
Oh,
the
yeah,
propellers.
your cathodes are something that corrodes or reacts more easily than steel. So a lot of times there's zinc, or I don't know, they've got other things. But you know, there's a hierarchy of corrosivity. in metals. It has to do with metallurgy. What metals like to give up, or will most volunteer to give up their electrons and stuff like that. So it's scientific. So yeah, okay. Engineers thought of that. Obviously, the Chinese didn't do that.
But they know of it. The
Of course.
galvanization has been around for, good Lord, over 150 years. The process. I mean, we didn't have mass manufactured galvanized stuff until later, but like the chemical science has been known for a very long time, and it's
Cathodic protection is old. You can't galvanize rebar. That won't work.
Right.
But you have to put some means of control in to manage the water. Oh, what else might be important? Do you want salt in your concrete?
Nope.
Oh, what happens to parking garages where cars drive in and drip the salty water in? Have you ever seen one of those in the US? Just turn.
Yep.
Okay, well, we didn't know what was going on there. They didn't plan for that. But do you think you should use sea salt in your or sea sand in your concrete mixing?
No, because you're going to get a lot of salt with it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a good idea. There's a lot that goes into this. So let's continue on this video.
That the bridge piers had settled and corrective measures were being taken. On February 17th, the Jiangling County government reported that the bridge in question was an agricultural bridge under construction with an investment of 1.65 million yuan. The bridge underwent a trial run on February 10th. On February 11th, the construction team noticed some settlement at the bridge's sides, leading to a tilt in the bridge deck. Immediate full closure measures were taken.
This is filled with foam. Just poke it. What kind of project is this? Over here on Mingyue Road. I can't believe it's filled with foam.
In a video shared by a man on February 23rd, foam was discovered inside the guardrails of a river channel in Chengdu, Sichuan. The man used his hands to reveal chunks of foam inside the concrete structure. The guardrails, which were supposed to provide safety, now appear to be nothing more than a paper tiger, leaving local residents shocked and angry. On February 26th, a video posted by a man named Beard Brother showed a collapsed roadbed on a highway in Chuzhou, Zhejiang province.
This is a highway exit leading to our village. This road has not passed the inspection yet, but the foundation has already sunk and cracked. Provincial and municipal leaders, please take a look. It's all cracked. Everyone, look here. This is the expressway. Below is the exit of our village. The red isolation zone here means it has not been opened yet. The foundation of this expressway has completely collapsed. This is not how shoddy construction is done.
The local government.
I just wanted to point out the foam example is particularly egregious. Okay. Now, some clever soul will say, "Oh, it's a barrier for cars. It's, you're supposed to hit the foam and it's supposed to be nice and soft." No, just stop.
That was underneath the guardrail. That was holding up the guardrail.
Yeah.
So no, you don't use foam there. Now, they do use foam in concrete in the US frequently. When you see those decorative things on the edge of the bridge, what they do is they glue styrofoam on the inside of the form, and they pour it, and then the concrete forms around that, and then they go and, sandblast or remove the foam, and then you can get some decorative features. It's not structural.
It's purely decorative, right? But it's purely decorative.
Purely decorative. Yes.
Okay.
Well, and
so,
it's different.
That foam was used to fill up spaces in the slab, so they use less concrete. Are you serious?
Well, in this particular case, it's clearly a cost-cutting measure because I can guarantee the foam was cheaper than the concrete, right? And it looked like it had a concrete shell around it when they made it.
Oh,
Okay.
like lipstick on a pig. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. This comment I have to bring up. Hello, Andrew. That road in China looks like I-476 outside Philly. Look, I've never been to Philly, but ouch is all I have to say about that.
Okay, we're not making the claim that shoddy construction does not happen in the U.S.
Correct.
It does.
Correct.
Sometimes it's because it was built shoddy. Sometimes it's just, oh, they missed something. They didn't think of that. And that happens all the time. And we have to then go back and say, oh, what was the failure here? Why did it happen? There was, I remember about a year ago, there was a case where engineer designed something, a certain kind of road fill. The contractor looked at it and said, damn, this thing won't work. He put in a change order to the engineer in charge and said, no, we don't like this. Here's what it's going to cost to put in this different type of fill. This is what you need. Contractor looked at the engineer looked at his calculations and said, nope, not approved. Do it the way I designed. So they did it the way he designed. Guess what happened? The damn thing failed. Would have cost him about $100,000 in a change order. I'm just paraphrasing here. No, it failed, and so it cost about $9 million to fix. That happens in the U.S. too.
Well, but you're making a point here, and we talk about morality, and we've waxed poetic about its benefits. But what you're talking about here, yeah, okay, the road collapse. Obviously, that's bad. And yeah, it would have cost them a little more upfront to do it correctly. But there is a steep cost to going back later and fixing something. Now, look, sometimes you have to replace things, okay? I've got a bridge that I drive across all the time that is probably, actually, no, I know exactly what year it was built. It was built in 1941. It's a steel truss bridge. The thing needs to be replaced, okay? It's old, it's tired, it's used, it's worn out, it's done, okay? That's not what we're talking about here. That kind of work you're going to have to do. But when you go from Steve, I'll just, because the math is easy, I'll say this: they could have spent $900,000 doing it the proper way, and they still would have saved 90% of the $9 million that they had to spend. And when it comes to roads, things like roads, that money doesn't come out of the contractor. That comes out of the state. And where does the state get their money from, Nick?
Federal budgets.
Taxes, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, I had to wait.
Like during COVID-19, there's a lot of federal funds for infrastructure if they signed in for their stupid ass policy. So
yeah, okay. And you know what?
Can I make a comment about the church here, though?
Okay, Nick.
Can I stop you?
Yeah, you can, since it's your thing. You can
a
stop
little
me.
for a little while.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So you build something shitty, right? That's crap. You build something on sand, right? The storms come and there's no foundation, it's destroyed, right? That's like the modern church built on complementarianism and egalitarianism.
What isn't there something Jesus said about a house built on sand versus a house built on rock? Doesn't the Bible have
Yeah, that's
something
where
like
I'm getting it from. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm getting it from. Oh, and now all these boomer pastors in like NAPARC, which is like the OPC, PCA, etc., right? And those are the two big ones. There's other ones, RCUS, URCNA, it's a couple of others. Anyways, and now all the young men are saying, nah, I ain't driving down that effing road and that effing bridge. Look at that. It's going to destroy me. It's going to collapse. All this stuff built on this boomer aesthetic of, or boomer ethic of, it's not exclusively boomers, there's also the generation before them. But hey, let's keep our churches going by pandering to women, by modifying our doctrine, and then still say, no, but we're reformed, we follow the confessions. No, you don't, you hypocrites. Oh, but it's going to cost us money if we throw all these women aside and tell these single moms to repent and call these elders to account for their whoring daughters, right? But then they say, oh, but the shit, they got married when they were 30 and they have kids now. Okay, good for you, you dumbasses.
Well,
No,
Nick,
this is why we're walking away from your crap. We're not driving down this road anymore. We're going back to the foundation.
Well, Nick, you just described in the church exactly what Steve was describing in his engineering example. That's what I said. Okay, they could have spent $900,000 to do it the right way, and it still would have cost them 90% less than if they had done it the right way with, instead of having to pay $9 million. Okay, so that the church did the same thing. They said, oh, well, we've got to pander to women because they're the ones who tithe, so they keep the lights on. Meanwhile, the church itself is falling down everywhere. Men aren't going to church anymore. They are not getting up on the Christian highway. Well, why would they? Same reasons.
Okay, this might date me as a boomer. There was an old Fram oil filter commercial. There was an old greasy mechanic selling Fram oil filters. I don't remember exactly, but he holds it up. You can pay me now, or you can pay me later. In other words, you put a good oil filter in your car and you change the oil. You pay it up front, pennies on the dollar. Or you can come and see them later when you need your engine rebuilt.
Right. So there's engineering for building a good product. There's engineering your product for the future so that people can maintain it. And then there's doing the maintenance. Okay. We see these. We see that progression in all aspects of life. The church is just another aspect of life that's like that. The church has to be built on a good foundation. Jesus talks about that in his parable. The church has to maintain good doctrine. Well, that's the maintenance, okay? And if you don't do the engineering up front, or you expand the church really fast, because you are pushing an ideology that appeals to a certain crowd.
Mission to North America. Yep.
Right, Nick. And yeah, you can build and you can grow really fast, and you can get those dollars coming in the church. But what you've actually done is sold out doctrine for money. Well, what did these engineers on these projects do? They sold out sound engineering for the future, sound doctrine for money.
Well, it wasn't just the engineers. Instead of engineers being in charge, you put finance weenies in charge who cared about finances
in North America
more than quality. And then the average workman who put this in there, oh no, he was more like a slave. Just do what you're told to do. So, you can't just
in the church.
Okay, the engineers, I don't like the guys in the pews in your membership of the church who are saying, "Hey, this is a dumb idea. Don't do this," and they're told, "You just shut up. This is what we need to do for financial reasons, or for aesthetics, or to appease the women, or to do this. You don't have a say here." Because when engineers did have a say about things, the world was not perfect, but the work was actually better.
Well, there's an overarching point here, and I don't know, Steve. Maybe I'm jumping the gun on you a little bit here,
Go ahead.
but morality absolutely kills people. It might not kill you, and which to that I would say. So if you're telling me that you don't care about killing other people, congratulations, you've just marked yourself as a sociopath. Sociopaths need one of two outcomes in life. Okay? For the good of humanity, they need to be removed from interaction with normal people. Okay? They need to be removed from the population. Now, we used to have a system for doing that. We don't anymore. And lo and behold, we see a general rise in sociopathy. Now, look, here's the other thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to try and put this as delicately as possible. If we do not voluntarily remove the sociopath, reality will remove the sociopath in far more violent means. Okay. This lack of morality that we have preached to ourselves in our society for the past 60 years.
Century almost. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you go back to the 70s, like it was a debate. The boomer ethos hadn't won out yet, right? But you get much further than about the 90s and the 80s or 90s, and pretty much everyone's decided that the boomers are right, and that the sociopaths are right. That it is okay to place my short-term gain above others. You know, okay, yes, that bridge in China that we just watched, China got lucky that the bridge was already closed for maintenance when it collapsed. Okay. Now, Steve sent me another article about a bridge collapse here in the United States where we were not so lucky. And
let me bring that up.
Oh,
I
hey,
want to
look.
compare this. Okay, this one, I traveled
Oh,
over.
dang. I was in Mississippi. No, I
many
just
times.
left Mississippi during that time.
Oh, this is in Minneapolis, over the Mississippi River. Did you know that the Mississippi River starts in Minnesota? Anyway,
I did know that.
the I-35 bridge. I-35W. W means, okay, Minnesota. Okay, here's a little aside. Minneapolis, St. Paul. They couldn't number the freeways because both are important. So the political compromise was Minneapolis got 35W. St. Paul got 35E. You notice one is not 35 and the other 135 because that would have, not good. So anyway, 35W. That's why it has a W. Okay, so they had this bridge, and you can see the picture of the bridge. It's a steel bridge. Traveled over it many times. Okay, after 39 years, it failed, killing 13 people. Yeah, there was traffic going over the bridge. Okay, it was a design flaw. Okay, notice it's a steel bridge. Thin gusset plate ripped along the rivets. They were actually doing construction on the bridge, and they piled some extra gravel and whatnot on the bridge. So it was additional load. So what do I want to point out here? First of all, 39 years. Then it took this extra gravel, which it wasn't designed for, yet they did some calculations and said it should be fine. It wasn't. And this kind of bridge is called a single point of failure bridge. Because if one critical component fails, the whole thing comes down. We have changed our technique since then. We do not build single point of failure bridges. You need more than one point of failure before the bridge collapses. So, yeah, we have failures in the U.S., bridge failures. Was this through poor workmanship? No. Bad engineering? Not really. Because engineering evolves. They learn over time. So this is a type of failure we have in the U.S. What other bridge failures do we have? Oh, big big ship comes in out of control, hits the abutment to the bridge, knocks it down, bridge falls down. Oh, yeah. Was there a problem there? Yeah. Oh, how do we avoid that in the future? Well, we put big concrete pylons in front of the supports for the bridge. That bridge in Baltimore didn't have those. Okay. Yeah, we still have failures here, but we learn and we have standards in place and we're getting there.
Well,
China, on the other hand, go ahead.
So the U.S. also, a large number of our bridge failures are age and maintenance related. In the U.S., the bridge is very old, and old bridges require more maintenance, which requires more money. But we don't want to spend the money to replace the bridge. Okay, and there were a couple in my area recently. Old bridges just gave up. You know what? That happens sometimes. Is that a fault of the engineer? No, the engineer will tell you this bridge is designed with proper maintenance to last X number of years. That bridge in China, that bridge was theoretically engineered to last what, 100 years. They said so right there in the video, right? So, sometimes things happen, well, okay, an excessively thin gusset plate rips. Okay, well, somebody probably made a mistake there. Okay. Either in manufacturing,
or it was something that they hadn't envisioned,
right? Or they hadn't seen it yet.
Engineers are not perfect.
No, we're not.
So they learn more, and our understanding evolves.
But Steve,
our designs evolve.
But Steve, shouldn't we be able to say the same thing about the Chinese engineers?
Oh, right. Okay. Did you watched that video? I don't know. We'll get to it. Did you see that concrete expressway on those single pillar concrete
I did.
pylons, like 3 of them, and the whole thing just fell over on its side?
Yeah, I did. I saw that.
Okay. We see these in the U.S. all the time.
Yeah, I've got a bunch in my area.
A bunch of, either single point or two concrete columns coming up, and then you might be 30, 40 feet in the air. Have you ever seen one fall over on its side?
No, we've got one in my area that goes 100 feet in the air. It's actually kind of fun to drive over.
So, okay, if you watch the rest of that video, and you have, these are not isolated events in China, are they?
No.
They're all over. Now, okay, you don't have to take my word for it, but just think. Think of the history of China, and I've been researching this. So, China was opened up to the world by, what was it, Kissinger? In the
Well,
early
everyone
70s.
says Nixon, but
Nixon, Kissinger, whatever. It was the early 70s, correct?
yes.
So, okay, before that, okay, China was just kind of cocooning because they'd really been fucked over by the British Empire. The Century of Shame, 1840 to 1950. Opium Wars and whatnot. China just kind of cocooned. China was one of the world leading economies in the 1820s. Actually, very advanced. Anyway, then by 1950 to 1970, they were just dirt for nothing. Everything, the only civilization by Western standards was Hong Kong, Shanghai. They ran everything. That's where all the money was. That's where the opium went through. They controlled China. The rest of China was dirt poor, nothing. 1970 opens up. So, okay, their communism is evolving. By 1990, they've risen to the point of third world status. Okay, they're getting a bit of industry, but the Western plan, globalist plan for China is they're going to stay poor. They're just going to provide cheap labor to make stuff for the rest of the world. And then, because even in 1990, China didn't have much. We're 2025 now. In 25 years, China goes from not much of anything to having the world's greatest high-speed rail system, all kinds of stupendous roads, high-rises, cities, great manufacturing, ports, all this stuff in 25 years. Because GDP, China's growing. They're so awesome. They're doing all this stuff. And look how modern they are. In 25 years, do you really think that they can achieve and better us, the Western countries, by the stuff they can build in 25 years that has taken us 100, 150 years to build? Do you think they can build quality stuff that's going to last in 25 years? Do you think they've learned their lessons from past failures in order to not make tofu dreg construction? They haven't had enough failures.
Controlled by the CCP.
And so, okay, here's the other thing about China. You've heard this in Asian cultures, saving face. You don't want to be dishonored. You don't want to be seen as being dishonorable. So they need to save face. So make it look good. I don't want to be dishonored. So I'll prop it up. I'll be subservient to my boss. I'll make him look good. I don't want to be blamed. It doesn't matter if I do a good job, as long as I'm not blamed for doing the bad job. So China, it was all about appearances. They pushed forward all this advancement, but scratch the surface. I guess I'm thinking that the substance is not there underneath this great appearance. What do you think, Plutarch?
Well, here's the thing. They could have, and they did, learned from everything that we had learned. We made no effort to hide what we'd learned in engineering. Okay. In fact, we have sent many thousands of engineers to China to show them how to do this. Okay. These bridge collapses are not happening for a lack of knowledge or expertise. So the reason I framed it the way that I did and got Steve to go on his nice long rant was because he's absolutely right. Steve is absolutely right. They have not had the time to learn. My point is simply, they could have done it if they had bothered to take to heart the lessons that they were told about. Okay, go back to the first video we watched, the Thai Tower collapse. Did anyone catch the Italian name mentioned in there? I'll guarantee you.
I heard the Italians mentioned, but not the Italian company name.
It was in there. The name of it was in there, but there was an Italian engineering company involved with this. Do you think that the Italian engineers might have been involved in saying do this, not that? The Italians know how to build good stuff.
Yeah, they do.
The Italians are what? Oh, Roman descent. Yeah, okay. So and the United States is currently thinking about buying a bunch of frigates from the Italians. So clearly the Italians can engineer. China has had the opportunity at every step of the way to do the proper engineering. They are choosing not to. And I say this because people, not just in the red pill, people everywhere want to hide behind this shield of, well, it's not my fault. Okay. But also there's a bit of this desperate plea for an amoralism. Oh man, I have talked to engineers about this, and every engineer I've talked about it said, well, I would never do that because that would be bad engineering.
Yeah.
And now most of the guys that I talk to are pretty high IQ, been engineering for a long time, and they are gassed at this idea that you might have people who would do the wrong thing for the wrong reason, money. Well, how could you do that? And I'm sitting here going, I don't think you understand how most people in the world operate. And so this plea to amorality is, and we talked about this in our stream last week, it is an attempt to shirk responsibility, not of the morality itself, but shirk the responsibility of imposing moral standards on others. Okay. Because if somebody in that Chinese tower project had bothered to impose standards on them and say, no, you are going to stop until you get this fixed, the tower would still be here. Okay.
Yeah, but engineers are not respected in our modern world. Let me put it, Nick can relate to this. Women don't like engineers because we're factual, we're boring. We look at, no, that's bullshit. It should be this way. And then we'll spend 30 minutes explaining why we're right. And not care about a woman's feelings. Yeah. Oh, the engineers are out there getting all the women? Not bloody likely.
Well, okay, guys. Remember, say, oh, but Plutarch, he's got a wife. We see her on. Yeah, remember, she ain't from this part of the world, and she's not even fairly normal for her part of the world. Okay.
Okay. Elena is not a normal woman. She's actually pretty high IQ, which is uncommon. I mean, the higher the intelligence level of a woman, the more uncommon it is. And that's the only reason Plutarch can be married to her, because he's pretty damn smart and she's pretty smart. So, yeah, it works. But otherwise, don't look at them as being a typical example of, oh, yeah, an engineer can get a woman. Not really. There's not enough smart women around.
There's in the same IQ band, there will always be fewer until you get to like 105 to 95. There will be fewer women than men, except in 105 to 95. Like that's just how the math works. Leptokurtosis sucks for us men out here, but it is what it is. So my point here is that I'm really trying to get at is you cannot avoid the morality of your choices hiding in the skirts of amorality, because the calculations required to build a stable, safe tower are pretty well known. Okay. These things, I mean, we built the Empire State Building in the 1920s. Okay. That was 100 years ago. And the thing is still there rocking it today. Okay. You can't hide, but I guess what I'm really trying to say is you can't hide behind the data. Okay. Yeah. The data's there. Yeah. The data exists. Yes. We have to talk about the data. Okay.
We have to make choices with it.
Yes, exactly. The Chinese chose not to use hundreds of years of engineering practice. Why did they choose not to? Well,
money. And
yeah, exactly. Money. Okay.
Oh, look at us. We're this advanced society. And we don't have the money to do it. And we're not going to use the money to do it because we have to answer to somebody that doesn't understand engineering, doesn't really care about engineering, to make them happy.
And I was talking with one of our regular viewers in the comments section of our last video, and he was really struggling with this idea of that that morality is inevitable, and I said something that I'd like to repeat here. And that is the notion that there is such a thing as amorality is observationally absurd. And what I think Steve has done a fantastic job this evening of showing is the observational absurdity of amorality. People died. You watched towers collapse. You watched bridge collapse tonight. These are real things that happened. You can go look them up. Okay. All because somebody put money ahead of morality.
Hey, there's another thing they put above morality. Oh, certain men put pussy above morality.
Yeah.
Let me suggest, I think I've proven it. Morality is one of the foundations of society. It is so basic, so necessary that things fail without it. And it's up to every individual man to do his duty, which, act according to, his innate beliefs and his, pride of workmanship, just doing the job, not being praised for it. Men do not get praised for what they do. Men don't get recognized. And most of us don't give a shit. I'm still going to do a good job. I'm going to do what's right, even if nobody sees it. That's a foundational thing. And yeah, Nick wants to say something.
At the end of the day, you're a moral creature. Everything you do, everything you choose to do carries a morality. It's a moral decision. If you build a society that thinks, oh, we're just chemical reactions, just beings made up of certain atoms colliding physically certain against time, speed, and temperature, hey, who the hell cares? Or if you think, oh, power is all that matters, so you're going to do everything to have this Nietzschean power, right? You don't care as long as you maintain that power. And you kind of see that with building things with no future impulse, just what immediately can gratify you in your own generation. And so you leave crap to happen to everyone after you.
The trades, those guys who make things happen. There's some words that they use. Workmanship. Something affected, made, or produced. The art or skill of a workman. We have a word for this. This is the man and what he should do. Okay, workmanship. There's another one I want to show. Let me show that one. Okay, and I learned this one in, I took a couple classes in like HVAC. You know, how to maintain your air conditioner and stuff like that. And he was educating tradesmen. He used this word a lot, well, several times. You need to do your work in a workman-like manner. And that's characterized by the skill and efficiency of a typical good workman. Competent and skillful, but not outstanding or original. Okay. That works. Your quality matters. You don't need to be innovative, but you damn well better do it right and make sure it works.
Well, you know, Steve, one of the things that you know, you're talking about this and I'm thinking of is we think, particularly in the West, we think that our view, like we have this word, workmanlike, right? There are not, this is not true in every culture. And, you know, on the topic of morality, moralities are systems. Yes, the morality is informed by the world around us, the nature of it, but not all humans share the same morality. Okay, there are entire cultures out there where this concept, whether or not they use the word like workmanlike, this concept is not only doesn't exist, they ridicule and you know and shit on anybody who would even consider to do something like this, because it will not bring you more power. It will not bring you the most money. You know, obviously doing things as quickly and cheaply as possible is the best way to make the most money. It is the best way to get somewhere, get to the end the quickest, right? So we in the West tend to have this assumption that people who do their work will do so in a workmanlike manner. But that is not always the case. And in fact, I would argue that it is not the common case in this world. And I mentioned the H-1B thing. Oh, well, what happens if you import the world? What are you going to get if you import the world, Steve? Or Nick? If you're,
that's our strength, though.
You reap the whirlwind. You import chaos and you reap the whirlwind.
Yeah. What you're going to import a culture that does not value workmanlike work.
Can I point out something here? Western civilization is foundationally Christian.
Thank you.
Therefore, moral, Christian morality. And that morality, Christian morality, was instilled all down to the bottom worker level. And remember, who did Jesus go to for his disciples? The learned class? No. He went to the workmen. He found common sense among those guys. Workmen, did they understand the concept of workmanship, workmanlike? I mean, St. Paul was a tent maker. He understood the necessity of doing a quality job. Yet you want, when you leave town, you want your tents to be in good condition. You don't want them to leak. You don't want seams ripping out, whatever. They cared. And the morality, the Christian morality, went down into what the average guy did with his hands. And that's why Western civilization has reached, dominance in the world. China had a high civilization. It kind of didn't last that long. They're rebuilding it. India, they had their ups and downs. Persia, ups and downs.
Yep.
What really built Western civilization? It was the European culture. Not because they're European. No, it's not a white man thing.
It's a Christian thing.
It's a Christian thing. Generational Christianity.
That's yes, and that's really where I wanted to land this, because Shu, thank you for the comment. That one stretched me a bit. I know Nick had a response, but he was having trouble getting YouTube to accept it. So, YouTube is annoying to work with as a comment platform. But and the comment that I wrote to Shu was very long because I had to elucidate this non-trivial idea that I'm trying to get across. And the core of the idea is that amorality is observationally absurd. And then, of course, I wrote some examples and whatnot under there and Steve brought tonight more visceral examples, people dying for a lack of morality. So, we can all get in our ivory towers and say, well, the data is amoral. In only the most trivial sense is the data amoral. The Chinese had access to the same data, the same engineering data. That data could have saved dozens of lives, probably thousands over the course of all the engineering fails that China's experienced recently. Okay. They chose not to. So when you're making you're making a specious argument, when you're talking about the amorality of data, you're making a specious argument, a vacuous argument. Yes, you're technically correct in the most absurd way possible, but in no point does that argument matter to anything. Okay, it just doesn't matter because you're going to kill somebody.
The applications. Okay, in the specious way. Yes, information is immoral, but the application of the information is a choice. Therefore, you can choose morality or not immorality. Well, it's one or the other. It's either black or white. There's no gray here. You're going to make a choice. Are you choosing good or are you choosing not good? Are you choosing long-term responsibility or are you choosing short-term gain?
That in itself assumes a morality in collecting it to begin with, and that truth is good and falsehood's not.
And we made that
to
point
collect
in our
proper data.
yeah, and we made that point in our last video. So I mean that's why I said I have to be very careful in how I frame this. It's like the information itself, not even the moment you try to look for the information, you're making a moral choice. But like, and that's why I said it's the most absurd possible thing to say, because you have to sit here and you have to whittle down the definition of information to an almost particle physics, quantum mechanics level, right? And nobody cares, okay? Because it doesn't matter. It's the applications of that information that matter, right? Information that exists and nobody does anything with it. Oh, well, who cares, right? Congratulations. You've won 1 cent in the lottery. You know, like you have some information. You do not have value until you can take information and convert it into positive action. That is where value is. That is why engineers are so valuable. That is why people who fix your HVAC or do your concrete pours, that is why those people are so valuable. It's not that they know things that makes them valuable. It's that they know how to take what they know and convert it into action that doesn't kill you 10 years later. I'm an engineer, so I'm getting a little fired up about this.
So now I'm going to even fire up Plutarch even more.
Oh no.
Let's talk about geopolitical.
No.
Does this have geopolitical implications? Hell yes. Okay, we're in a pissing match with China right now. The tariffs, all that stuff. Things are not going great in China. A lot of people have lost their jobs. They're saying, oh, they're going to survive, find other markets. Oh, the U.S. is morally good for doing this. I'm not so sure about that. We shipped them all our manufacturing. No, it wasn't them that took it. It was our finance weenies who sent it over there for profit reasons. That was a dumb thing to do.
Yep.
So, but anyway, we're kind of in a pissing match. Economic war. Could it become a shooting war? Yeah, possibly. Quite
Trade
possibly.
wars typically end up that way.
So, what's our infrastructure like to support? Okay, if we went to war with them. Okay, we're not perfect. We're kind of sucking wind in some areas, but our infrastructure gets the job done. We can move stuff around. We have the defense industry. If China goes to war footing and these tofu, and they counting on these tofu dreg construction projects to work when the shit hits the fan, they might be having some problems. On the other hand, yeah, we might have some crumbling bridges and some rough roadways, but they still are there. They're not falling down for the most part. We can move stuff from point A to B. And I think infrastructure-wise, we are still better off than China. No, we don't have shiny new high-speed railway projects. But do you know that China can't even produce the train axle and wheels to allow their trains to go 300 kilometers per hour because their machining is not precise enough? They have to import those from, I think it's Germany or something.
Yeah, Germany
because
would be.
They cannot get the steel and the grinding and the machining. They cannot produce something that critical. Remember, that has to be vibration free, because otherwise things are going to go like that. And it has to last a long time and not wear out. There's a lot of metallurgy that goes into that. China cannot produce that shit. So, you know what? Their 300-kilometer high-speed rail Yeah, it's like 140.
Well, look, it is past time, particularly on Twitter, to shit on the United States. Okay. I I see people all the time. Oh, the United States. There's one guy who's, he's a merchant mariner. Okay, so U.S. Merchant Marine, they do a lot of shipping for the U.S. military, and he will tell you all about how horrible our shipping infrastructure is, our military shipping infrastructure is. But no one ever stops and asks, where is China's shipping military shipping infrastructure? Oh yeah, they don't have one. They're busy trying to build it out right now. Or, okay, let's talk about some other infrastructure, roads. Steve, you brought up Eisenhower's interstate network from the 1950s. Yeah, there are parts of it that they're not in the best repair. Okay, but we have one. China does not have a nation-spanning interstate network that would allow them to move military hardware wherever they need it. They do have a reasonable rail infrastructure, but...
Hey, Plutarch, if for some reason some country bombed all of our major airports with the 5,000 to 10,000 foot long runways, what would we do?
Stick it all in trucks and go back to work.
Oh, wait, what about our interstate system? Could that do anything for us?
Yeah, we can keep moving material, whatever kind of material you want.
Oh, how about those 4 or 5 mile long straight sections of interstate? Can we land planes on them?
Yeah, we can. Not in all parts of the country. Not all parts of the country have this. I just want to point that out. But they can do it. They were built for it.
Yeah, we got a lot of straight roads in North Dakota, let me tell you.
Yeah. I live in the Pacific time zone. We don't have quite so many straight roads, but I do want to say, even then, the designers of the interstate system went to great lengths to find chunks that they could make straight.
And you need to land the heaviest plane. What do you need? 12,000 feet, 15,000 feet?
Not even really that. Yeah,
I mean,
even like a C5 will do it in 8,000. So
8,000 feet is what?
A couple miles.
Okay, it's under a mile and a half. You're gonna need some.
Yeah, you need some turnaround. Yeah.
So consider it 2 miles.
Yeah, we'll call it 2. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Do you have the turnaround? No, you don't. Oh, that means you're gonna have to get some earth moving equipment out there and build a 200-foot gravel turnaround from one lane over to the other lane so they can take off going in the other direction. Gee, how long is that going to take to get?
Might be done overnight.
Trucks, build hauling gravel out there, a couple bulldozers and some graders to level it out. Oh, and you know what? Let's just get a paver out there, and we got to pave 50 foot by 200 foot. How long is that going to take? Can you get it done in a week?
Yes.
Oh, hell yeah. Probably 3 days.
Yeah, about 3 days. Yeah. 3 days, guys. I mean, 3 days.
Have our engineers thought ahead about these things? Are we prepared? No. The U.S. is not perfect. We got plenty of problems here.
Yes, we do.
I can go on a critical rant about what the U.S. is so stupid about. But our basic level of infrastructure and the workmanship and workman-like stuff that our predecessors built in this country still exists. I'm thankful for those guys.
Well, not only does it exist, it is the only place in the world that it exists in the quantity and quality that it does. There are some places in the world that kind of do stuff like this, but okay, let's take Europe. Europe, all of their roads tend to follow the old goat paths, the old wagon paths, right? Okay, I don't know how many of you guys have ever been to Europe, but a straight road is a frighteningly rare occurrence in Europe. They cannot do what we're talking about doing because they don't have a straight road to work with. Now, I know we're picking on roads here, but there's, okay, we don't know how to build ships in the United States anymore, large ships. No, we know how to build. We just found it cheaper, the finance guys, to export that building to cheaper countries to do the work for us. Okay. So we actually still have the ability to build fairly large ships. We still build aircraft carriers here. We just can't build at the rate that we would need to be able to build in a port, but we still have the facilities. We could, like, for example, Huntington Ingalls builds nuclear aircraft carriers. And of course, they have the dry docks to do this, and they have the infrastructure to do all the steel and all of the lifting. How much effort would it take to dig out another dry dock? Well, not actually that much effort. We currently lack the financial will to do it, but the actual amount of work, we could have a dry dock built in 6 months to start pumping out aircraft carriers. Okay, so, like, everyone loves to shit on the United States, especially U.S. citizens. But you guys, you're getting a little ahead of yourselves. And part of it is you see all of the, particularly for,
Propaganda.
What was that, Nick?
Propaganda.
Well, yes, actually. So are there aspects of our infrastructure that are not what they once were? Absolutely. The interstate system is in need of repair and pretty significant repairs. In some places, yes, we need to be building out shipbuilding capacity. Like I could list off a list of things and okay. But we still have the capacity. We still can if we choose to. And then, Nick, you mentioned propaganda. I love that you mentioned that. It is in our enemy's best interest to convince us that we are not capable of doing this. To which I have to say to the MSS, get fucked, stay fucked, we can. The fact that we have chosen to do it cheaper elsewhere is a tactical mistake, but it is not going to be our strategic failure.
So let me kind of bring this in for a close. The morality of your father and grandfather in what they built matters today.
Yes.
Think about it. It matters today. And the morality of the individual men today is the strength of our society, not diversity. It's the morality of the men.
Yes.
And so, yeah, what you do and your choices matter. Think about
it. My closing thoughts is, and I love my dad to death, and he's also an engineer, mechanical engineer. And I look at what the people who came before built, and I can get pretty pissy at boomers now, and the boomers will try to take credit for what was built, but the boomers were they were 5 years old when Eisenhower was in power. They didn't actually build that. Okay. They like to claim that they built it, but it was actually the bulk of this the stuff that we are still leaning on today was actually built by what is frequently called the greatest generation, the generation that fought and won World War II. Well, when they won World War II, they came home having learned to work together in groups, large groups, to achieve a common goal. And they came home and they just kept going. The interstate system was entirely their project. Us going to the freaking moon was entirely their project. Okay. We went, but when we went to the moon, Woodstock was still in the future. Okay. Woodstock is the boomers, the early boomers coming of age. So no, the boomers did not build this. And the reason I get so pissy with so many boomers is because they try to take credit as if they did build it. Okay.
Well, they're back in the age of dinosaurs, don't you remember?
they certainly do. Now, present company excluded, and I'm not saying that there were, Steve being a boomer, but and I'm not saying that there were not competent moral people in this time frame. There were. Okay. And the boomers actually, the one credit I will give them is they actually did maintain what was built. They didn't build it, but they did maintain it. And that's likely where their view of their ownership of it comes from. Okay. Now, did they maintain it as well as was intended? Actually, no, not really. But at least they did maintain it. So it still exists. It's not, lining the bottoms of rivers, like the Chinese stuff is. So, but their ability to maintain it was given to them by the greatest generation. So your morality reverberates throughout the generations. If the United States is going to survive the coming crisis, it will be because of the morality of our forefathers, the guys who set up the country, and we've dunked on them a little bit, but they actually did a pretty good job with things like the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, right, Fifth Amendment. Like they had some good ideas. What?
No, that was a joke.
Okay, and then the greatest generation built us an infrastructure that can win a world war. Nobody in human history has done that before. Okay, so
their biggest failure though was letting the women have a say.
Well, yes,
especially in the churches.
Notice that I did not include the 19th. I do not consider the 19th an achievement.
No.
But this idea that you can be an amoral actor in the world is observationally absurd. So when an empiricist comes to me and tells me that the information is amoral, I actually just start laughing at them, because either they're making a claim that is so useless so absurdly useless, or they haven't sat down and thought about what they're actually saying. And Elena asks a question in here, right? Information itself is not valuable. What you do with it is. And she's asking, is that correct? Yes, that is correct. Information without action has no value. Okay? You can do good things with information. You can do bad things with information. Whether or not they're good or bad, that's up to the moral system you choose to apply to it. But information without action is useless. And so therefore, claiming that information is amoral is also equally useless. Okay? Don't make absurd statements.
Let's let Nick finish this out. Nick, what's the morality of putting lipstick on a pig?
It's immoral.
Okay, Nick.
Hey,
why is it immoral?
but I think let's just say it's like you're trying to dress up something that in itself is revolting. It's like these buildings. You can make them look really pretty, but internally they're not structurally sound. or these bridges, right? You can dress them up, make them have all these fruit things, right? Looks really nice. They might have a spot, let's just say these buildings might have these really nice, like wireless charging systems, might have really good internet, connectivity, might have all these great things. But hey, like if a wind blows the wrong way, an earthquake happens, it's crap. Same thing you can say with women, right? Well, let's apply it to women. That's kind of what we do. You can apply it to men too. That's fine. Right?
Cook, Nick.
Apply it to a woman. So you have a woman, right? She's been run through, right? She's run through, can't pair bond. She can't keep a good man, right? And she has all these ideas of what she deserves, right? But in order to attract a man that she thinks she deserves, she's like a pig with it's like putting lipstick on a pig. And yet men will keep falling for it over and over because it looks so nice. She looks so nice. Man, she looks so attractive. But if you really get down to it, she's not structurally sound. You're putting lipstick on a pig, and you're attracted to lipstick on a pig. Because I got the box. It feels so good. You're an idiot.
Box is the downfall of civilization.
Nick asked me.
Tradwives, by the way.
Steve.
Tradwives. A lot of these tradwives are lipstick on a pig.
Oh, Nick. Oh, you went there. I love it. You're correct.
Yeah.
Before the stream, Nick and I have a running joke because I said sometimes I put a quarter in Nick and just let him rant and rave. So Nick says to me, Steve, are you going to put a quarter in me tonight? I said, Nick, I don't know. We'll see if I get the opportunity. I guess that was my quarter. And man, did I get my money's worth.
I knew what you were doing. I didn't care.
Hey, if Steve is winding you up in a good direction, why not play it for what it's worth, right?
Yeah, I'll take the poking and prodding of the wise old man here.
Well, you know what? This turned out to be a pretty good stream. It was good to talk about the practicalities of what was presented last week. We talked last week, it was the philosophy of morality. I guess today was about the practicality of morality.
Well, it's good to do both because without the philosophy, you don't understand why you need to be practical. But without the practical, why do you care about the philosophy to begin with? So, do we have any final words, gentlemen?
Nope.
All right. No, Nick, you're good. Okay.
Good.
So, if you guys have questions, please leave a comment. We'll do our best to get back to you. Sometimes YouTube doesn't allow us to because YouTube, if you want to hear more, give us a subscribe. Likes are appreciated, but that's about all they're worth on YouTube. Next week, we're going to go a completely different direction. We've kind of beat this morality topic to a pulp. I think we've done 3 streams of, 3 of our past 5 streams. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 of the past 5 streams have been on the topic of morality. So we're going to go a different route next week. And we're going to talk, let's see, how do I put this? Economic demographics or demographic economics? We'll go with demographic economics. It's been in the news that Trump is pushing this idea that we need to give women $5,000 to have more babies. And this is going to solve our birth rate issue. So next week we're gonna take a critical look at that idea. You guys can probably guess where we're going to end up with this, but we will do our usual thorough analysis. We're going to spend some time looking at how this idea is not new, by the way. Most of the
Talked about it here and there before.
yeah, we have well, and this idea is not new in the world. There's lots of countries that are in the process of trying this idea right now, and so we're going to look at how they're doing. We'll do a check-in on them. I've mentioned Hungary before. Hungary will come up again because we got some new data in between, and I love new data. But we're also going to look at the economics of it, and it's turning into a bit of a hot topic on the Twitter sphere and on YouTube, and it needs to be addressed critically because so many people are desperate for a quick, easy, cheap solution. Oh, hey, look, what did we just get done talking about? So, we often say that our work is, you can't just watch one because we're building a tapestry. We're building a picture, a model of the world. And so, we love referring back to our old videos. So yeah, join us next week. And we'll be talking about the economics of demographics or demographic economics. Don't know which way I'm going to go with that yet. So yeah, we'll see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye.
There was a firefight! Son of a bitch!